Hey everybody, welcome to the star ratings, my personal star ratings for the cards in the Showdown in the Badlands. Now, as you may be able to tell from the title, I'm going to do these as blocks of 3, I think. So, first up, we're just going to do this in alphabetical order. We're going to be doing Death Knight, Demon Hunter, and Druid. And again, if you didn't catch the end of my last episode for the final reveals, the way I'm going to do this, and you might not agree with me, but tough. If I think a card is going to slot into a tier 1 deck, I'm going to give it 5 stars. If I think it's going to go into a tier 2 deck, 4. Tier 3, 3. And then basically, if I think it's going to be tested or it's going to be like a tier 4-ish deck, I'll give it 2 stars. And then 1 star, I just don't think it's going to go anywhere. Maybe there are some cards I might just bump up a tiny little bit if I think it's going to be so ubiquitous that even though, like, it's probably going to just go into, tier 3 decks, it's going to go into so many tier 3 decks, I might give it a pity star. Anyway, first up, as I said, we're going to go with the Death Knights, right? And Death Knights, they had 2 big archetypes, is what I'll say for the Showdown in the Badlands. They have the Excavation package, which consists of Pile of Bones, Rescue the Pit Boss, Reap What You Sow, Skeleton Crew, Harrowing Ox, and Crop Rotation. You might be asking why I put Rescue in that. Well, okay, one of the Excavation cards is Frost Unholy. The reward for this is the Azurite Rat, I believe, which resummons your highest cost minion that has died. Obviously, Rescue is meant to be the highest cost minion you're going to resummon. And then Crop Rotation is clearly there for bodies to die so that Rescue gets buffed. Also, I don't think I mentioned this during the Death Knight reveal, that Rescue is just on minions dying. It's not just your minions, so it's your opponents as well. So it makes it even easier to meet the cost of this. This was the first reveal that also came out, and I was pretty excited at the time. Now I'm not so excited though, unfortunately. So Pile of Bones, Rescue the Pit Boss, and Crop Rotation 1 star. I think the Excavation package, as the Hearthstone team intended it, is going to be too slow. And moreover, the big payoff is, resurrecting your highest cost minion, right? Unfortunately, one of the last cards revealed was Reno. And I think you're going to be getting Rescue up around this turn 8 mark. And if it gets Reno'd and just whooshed away, it doesn't die and therefore it can't be resurrected, which means your deck will be worthless. Therefore, I think as much as I'd like Pile of Bones to work, every time you excavate, you get a little 2-1 nod onto your card. I just think it's going to be too slow. Now, you might be saying, why have you not said the thing for Reap What You Sow, Skeleton Crew, and Harrowing Ox? Well, I think they might actually go into a slightly different deck, so I've given each of these 2 stars instead. What deck, you may be asking? Well, there's a theoretical package which revolves around excavating twice for your Harrowing Ox to discount another card. So I think Reap What You Sow and Skeleton Crew will go into that excavation, kind of like an undead frost deck. So the combo is, you excavate twice before, turn 5. You play the new Cattle Rustler, that will draw a beast. The Harrowing Ox is a beast. You'll have excavated twice, therefore your Harrowing Ox will be 4 mana on turn 6. You play Harrowing Ox, discounts your next card by 7. You have Kael'thas in your deck, which will then cost 1. So you can play Harrowing Ox into Kael'thas, and your third minion will then be 0. Your ideal minion will play Thaddeus then. And then your Azurite Rat will resummon Thaddeus instead, which is a really big, chunky boy. Unfortunately, I think this is just too much of a pipe dream. I think it's going to be so unrealistic that you're going to hit this high roll where you get it off by turn 6. If you do get it off by turn 6, though, a bit like Thaddeus Warlock right now, it's really obnoxious to deal with, so I think it might be a tier 4 deck. Then the archetype has been built around this has been like a frost deck, so you can slow your opponent down, so you can get this combo off whilst also plinking away at their face and threatening them that way. But at the end of the day, I don't think if you get this combo off after turn 7, you're always susceptible to being Reno'd again. So I'm sorry, but the Excavation package for Death Knight is just ruined by the existence of Reno. And I do think a lot of the tier 1 top end decks will actually go into a Highlander state. Even if they don't have the Highlander payoff other than Reno, that's how insane I think Reno is going to be. So yeah, they're going to be 2-star cards. Then the other package was clearly meant for a climatic necrotic explosion rainbow Death Knight deck. We had More and Poor, Corpse Farm, and Fistful of Corpses for corpse generation and corpse spending extravaganza. Sadly, I don't think it's going to work. 2 stars, all of them. I think it's going to be a tier 4 deck. I think there are better ways to generate like a huge churn, even within Death Knight. I think the Unholy package with Marugar is still better. I don't think you're ever going to really crank Climatic Necrotic Explosion up to be like a 1-turn kill deck, so... And at the end of the day, I think the biggest card for that deck is More and Poor. It's a legendary, you're going to only have one of them. If it's at the bottom of your deck, you're going to have big, sad, unhappy times. It is an undead, so you might be able to, generate it by other means. But I just don't see it. I think it's going to be a tier 4 deck, sadly. And then finally, the card that didn't really fit any of these is Farmhand. It wouldn't go into the Rainbow package. Maybe it could have gone into this like value excavation package because they were only showing 1 Frost, 1 Unholy. Where I think it might see some plays in Holy Death Knight, the triple rune version of it. But I don't think it's going to be a necessity for that. I think it'll be tested but then dropped. So I'm giving it 2 stars as well. So yeah, Death Knight, I think you're going to have some slim pickings. Now over to Demon Hunter World. And I think I might be the biggest Demon Hunter simp compared to some of the other people that have been reviewing this class. There's 2 big packages. One of them is Naga Demon Hunter, which is going to be some sort of aggressive, plink your opponent's face down with spells, with attack buffs, and then just the Nagas themselves. I've seen a lot of people thinking, this isn't going to work, it's going to be too slow. I put together a list, and honestly, I think it's going to be a tier 2 deck. I think I can see it being almost equivalent to the Undead Shadow Priest list. But you can actually trade opponents' like aggressive minions off by just, doing damage to like the lowest health minion and stuff like that, or just random damage to another enemy. So I'm actually giving 4 of these cards 4 stars because I think it'll be a tier 2 deck. Pocket Sand, on the other hand, I'm only going to give 2 stars to. I think it'll be tested in that deck, but 2 mana deal 3 damage is not going to be efficient enough. It doesn't have the Fel tag, sadly, so it wouldn't be discounted by Load the Chamber. So I think you'll see something else in that slot. You'll definitely see Predation in that deck, but I think you'll see something else other than Pocket Sand even. Then you may have noticed there was one other Naga release, but I don't think that will actually go into the Naga Demon Hunter package. Instead, I think this will go into the Highlander Demon Hunter package. And I'm actually pretty excited for this. As you're going to see from my ratings, and by the way, I think all of these cards will go potentially into that package. Snake Eyes, Gunslinger Kurtrus, Fan the Hammer, Bartender Bot, and a Midnight Wolf. 4 of them, again, I've given 4 stars to. I put together what I think the tier list will be now that I've seen all the cards. And I still think Rainbow Mage and Odin Warrior, they're going to be in the tier 1 states. I also think there is going to be an Excavate Warlock deck, which might have the Abyssal Curse package in there. And all 3 of those will have an important minion combo piece. And I think it's actually going to be worth having a deck built around something that is effectively mutinous, i.e. Gunslinger Kurtrus, who can shoot minions in your hand. Now, I mentioned during the reveal, I think I mentioned that spell damage increases it. I'm dumb, it's a minion, sorry. It still stands though that the Enchanter, I don't know if Enchanter works with Kurtrus. If it does, and I definitely have that in my Highlander deck, then you've got a really good chance of, melting down one of these minions. I'd say the least likely one you're going to hit is Odin, just because Warrior can also hand buff the Odin itself to get into like 11-11 range, in which case you're probably unlikely to fire it down with 12 damage, right, unless you're very lucky. I think Bartender Bot and Midnight Wolf are going to make that list as well. I think you'll run maybe like 1 or 2 other Outcast cards, but the real top draw would be Bartender Bot, giving you not only just a draw, but also giving you the Midnight Wolf, which you get, then play at 6 for 12 of stats, which are fast. I actually don't think this will go into Outcast Demon Hunter, funnily enough. I think the mana cost is just too expensive for that deck. It wants to be a bit more aggressive. And you may have noticed again, there's one final card here I've not put a rating on, which is Fan the Hammer. I've given this 2 stars, but actually my list I've put together, since I was kind of putting these ratings together, Fan the Hammer just makes like the 30th card slot in that deck, because I have Jotun in that deck as well for a bit more value. I could easily see it though being cut from that deck. It's not particularly great. 4 mana deals 6 damage. You might say it's a fireball, yeah, but fireball doesn't really see play anymore. And also it goes to the lowest health enemies, which you might say is an advantage if you're a more control-oriented deck. I kind of agree with that. So maybe it'll make this list, and it also should be a 4-star card, but I'm kind of hedging my bets a bit. I think if any of these cards isn't going to make it, it's going to be Fan the Hammer. And then Snake Eyes, I think is going to be too slow for the Naga Demon Hunter list, but I think it's perfect for this list. You also have to remember that you might say, like, how are you rating this 4 stars? Remember, you're going to be running Reno in this deck as well, and Reno is just going to give you some free victories. I'm sorry to say, if you draw Reno and your opponent hasn't got it, you clear their board, you get a button, which is very efficient, good value, and it's just going to put pressure on your opponent's face. So I think a lot of the Highlander decks are actually going to do better than I rated it during the reveals. We're not doing Hunter this time, but some of my Hunter ratings might surprise you. Anyway, let's move on to the final one I'm doing for this episode. We are going to Druid Land, where they had one big package, let's be honest. It was the Dragon package. And before the reveal of Reno, I had this as a tier 1 deck. I thought it was going to be like the bottom end of tier 1. I thought it was going to be the last bastion of value decks. Because, man, some of these dragons have insane swing potential, insane value turns. You know, effectively 0 mana 3/5s. 7 mana copies your dragons. Yeah, just really, really good stuff. And the Purified Dragoness just giving you infinite value over, you know, time. Very good. I still maybe am coping on this a little bit, but I've given all of them 4 stars. I think it's going to slot into tier 2 instead. Now, it's kind of a weird thing, because I just said, you know, Highlander decks, they are going to be better because Reno exists. That is true, and maybe this will actually get into tier 1, because you will run Reno in this deck. However, it's kind of, again, a mutually assured destruction situation that Reno is going to destroy the Purified Dragon Nest. If you go against this Dragon Druid and you have Reno, you're going to save it for that purpose. And it basically kills your purpose of going Highlander, because going Highlander, you know, is a disadvantage. You need these big effects, this big payoff for you running weaker cards than you'd put in your deck. The only two payoffs now are Rheastraza giving you the Purified Dragon Nest and Reno. But other decks could run Reno, so like that kind of, you know, cancels each other out. So you're comparing Rheastraza to other decks with no duplicates, and sadly, Reno just makes Rheastraza way, way, way worse. But I still think she'll be ran into a Highlander Druid deck, and I think it will still get into the tier 2 range. Because as I said, if you don't draw Reno, you're still going to be big sad. And actually, it might prove to be that Rheastraza's Dragon Nest, if you keep it up for like, even if you keep it up for like 3 or 4 turns, maybe that is enough value to justify going into this Highlander package anyway. There may also be a world, and this is also why I've given a lot of these 4 stars, where you don't actually run the Highlander variant, because the dragons are so insane on their own for value, that maybe you run like a big Druid list with duplicates of the dragons instead, and you just drop Rheastraza. But sadly, again, I think this is going to be susceptible to being Reno'd, so I don't think that'll be a tier 1 deck either. So all of these get 4 stars. Then there was 2 final other outliers, Cactus Construct and Rehydrate, which I'm giving 1 and 2 stars respectively. Cactus Construct is 1 mana, discover a 2-cost minion, summon a 1/2 copy of it. You're getting a 2-cost minions effect with a 1/2 stat line. 1/2 stat line is pretty underwhelming now for 1 mana if it doesn't have a good effect on it. And I went through the list of 2-drops between, you know, Druid and the neutral class. There's a lot of them, and most of them are bad, so I think Cactus Construct will also be bad. Now, Rehydrate I've given 2 stars to, but I'm not entirely certain it's going to see play in any deck right now. But I've always said this, you have to be so cautious with cards that are effectively like 0 mana spells, and Rehydrate could be a 0 mana spell. If you get its quick draw effect off, and it's pretty cheap, so you're more likely to get the quick draw effect off, it is 2 mana, get 2 mana crystals, heal for 7, which is effectively, you know, a net 0 mana spend on a spell. Now, Gadgetzan and Auctioneer has dropped out of the rotation. They still have the other spell lover, though, that gives you 4 mana crystals back for 3. So I could see some world where, you know, you get some infinite draw all my cards, play all my cards, Druid shit again, and Rehydrate will be a centerpiece for that. But I don't think the package exists right now. So I'm going to give it 2 stars, because I think it's one to look out for the future. It may be tested in other decks. It also may actually see play in this Druid deck, but I don't think my built version ran the Rehydrate. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Next time we'll go through the next 3 alphabetically, which you'd think I'd know, but I can't remember off the top of my head, so apologies. It's going to be like... Is it Hunter, Mage... Is it Priest after that? I know the alphabets are like really skewed in Hearthstone. Anyway, I'll see you then. Goodbye.